also have scrubshopper.com and a couple of others. But we've been around for about 5 years now, but we blew up about 2012 with a lot of social acquisition plays. So we have 6 million fans on Facebook and a lot of social reach that way. So also about 12 million subscribers through email. I'm previously with Walmart and SamsClub.com, and I've done a lot of freelance work over the past 10 or 15 years. So that kind of prepared me to move into the role I'm in today at Acumen Brands as the VP of Marketing Ops.
Sure, so hi all everyone, I'm with Sailthru. So for those who aren't familiar with Sailthru, we provide customer retention software to business to consumer marketers. We're primarily focused on 3 main tenets to that. One is personalization, the second is automation, and the third is analytics. Right now we work with about 400 companies that are pretty evenly split between the e-commerce vertical and the media and publishing vertical. My role is focused on customer enablement and success, how we optimize those customers to get maximum ROI out of our platform. My fun fact is I was actually a Salesroom customer before I joined the company about 15 months ago. Ran marketing for a company called Sailthru, which is now part of Groupon Reserve, previously with theladders.com out of New York as well.
So we're talking about personalization today, and maybe Ben, I'll start with you. What got you thinking about personalization at Acumen?
You know, I think it started after we had gone through a really quick acquisition cycle for email subscribers. We went from about 40,000 subscribers in early 2012 up to today of about 12 million. But in the first 6 months, we've acquired about 8 million subscribers, which is huge. I mean, we were from 40,000, just a very small presence, and turned into a huge channel for us. So we did a lot of batch and blast marketing. And started to realize that customer retention wasn't there. So we were trying to figure out how to truly monetize the customer base, and that's where personalization started to come around and become, you know, something that made a lot of sense.
Got it. And Cassie, how does Sailthru help companies that are in Acumen's position?
Sure, so as I mentioned before, at the end of the day we're focused on customer retention, but we see personalization as a very, very powerful means to an end of that goal of retention. For us, when we look at personalization, we've seen it historically defined as segmentation. And what we're really trying to do is to transcend segmentation and make it truly about the individual and make one-to-one marketing achievable and scalable. And I think, you know, as an extension of that, a lot of times when we think about personalization and we ask marketers what they're doing or what their pain points are, it's very rules-based. It's about hello first name, or you live in this city versus that city. What we're really trying to do is make that much more behavioral, much more inherent to each end user, just to make the personalization that much more sophisticated, and we're seeing some interesting results from taking that angle.
So I think, I mean, there's been, one of the things that strikes me is there's been talk about personalization, you know, since the beginning of the internet, right? The internet would allow companies to target individuals in a kind of mass, at massive scale. You know, big data will help companies do this, but it seems like one of those things that has a lot of promise, but has been really hard to actually implement and make happen. I mean, how do you guys think about that?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, you know, we talk a lot about big data, but the reality of big data is that it's presented us with very big silos. And it makes it very difficult for marketers to stitch together this single view of the customer, this 360-degree profile. So people have arguably been talking about one-to-one since probably the advent of the internet, but we've kind of gone through these waves of it's become slightly more feasible, more difficult. We think about personalization as having that single customer view across all channels. So whether it's brick and mortar, if it's on site, email, mobile, etc. What we're seeing is that, especially with the API economy, a lot of things happening there, that single customer view is more feasible and we're more empowered to do it. And that's what we're trying to do, is get all that information in one place so that we can then push it out across all the different channels.
And to you, how important is it that that be, say, rule-based versus you know, machine learning based, or however else you do it? I mean, my impression is that the problem with, the challenge with rules-based systems is you can't have an infinite, it might take too long to set up an infinite number of rules for an infinite number of customers, right?
I think inevitably rules fall back on customer segments, right? And that's something we're really trying to move away from. there's no doubt that segmentation works. It drives incremental lift, but there's substantially more lift in the one-to-one approach. So what we're doing that's slightly different is we're actually looking to build a unique interest graph for each end user. So tracking what that user browses on the website, when they buy in the store, and determining personas for them. So in the instance of Country Outfitter, we know if you're urban chic versus country. We know that you buy at a high price point versus a low, and make it more general to the products that suit you versus a very regimented segment.
Ben, could you talk a little bit about how you guys are doing personalization today?
Sure. I'll kind of expand on what Cassie was saying. So in the personalization space especially, what they're doing made a lot of sense to us because, like she said, if you're urban chic versus a true country girl or whatever, like I'm wearing kind of an urban fry pair of boots today, they're very polarizing. Like customers are almost offended if you show them the wrong pair of boots. And so it made personalization turn into something that made a lot of sense for us. The key to it is understanding exactly where to go with it. So this interest graph that we have built around tags on the site allows us to go in and build campaigns around, everybody's heard about the abandoned cart type campaigns or browse abandoned, and different things like that, and that's in the B2C space. I think there's equivalents in the B2B as well. But on the B2C side, those are things that everybody's familiar with. We've decided to go much further than that and not just use browse abandoned, but things like product view abandoned. If you've searched on the site, that's on-site search abandoned. So there's so many campaigns that start to build a life cycle marketing approach behaviorally and a personalized approach that way. So that's kind of the direction we're trying to take the entire thing. And I'll just give you a couple of quick numbers. So as we went through that quick acquisition phase in late 2012, I mean, everybody knows you acquire a lot of customers at once, and then they kind of have a degradation curve that's, falls off fairly quickly. We were looking for a way to really re-engage all of those customers and provide a lot better experience for those customers. So year over year to date right now, we're looking at email revenue performance alone up about 90%. And I think we can attribute most of that to serving the right message to the right customer at the right time. And that, to me, that's fundamentally what personalization is about.
And for you, is personalization today mostly about email and targeting the right email to the right person? Is it about other things? Do you see, are you using other channels as well?
Sure. Email is kind of our bread and butter because we have such a large subscriber base. But the great thing now with things like Facebook custom audiences, Google dynamic remarketing, there's a lot of places where that dynamic, very product specific or very item specific data is available to pass into these other platforms. So anytime you can create an omnichannel approach to something, or at least a multi-channel approach, and have an email campaign that's supplemented by something on Facebook or something on Google, then it's going to be a lot more valuable to the consumer and in the end to you.
And you've been doing retargeting as well.
Absolutely.
And personalized retargeting. Mm-hmm. And how's that working for you?
Yeah, so we basically strained the list into kind of high-value customers, low-value customers, customers likely to churn, all those different groups, and then try to create specific messaging to them. The remarketing tools we use pretty prolifically on display. We've started getting into, like I said, Google dynamic retargeting through the display network. And then even something really simple is that not a lot of people use often is search retargeting. So if somebody goes into Google and types countryoutfitter.com, we'll bid more for them if they've been to our site previously. So it's not fancy, but it's something that Google allows you to do using those cookies. So very valuable.
And when you think about success, the success of this strategy, what metrics do you care most about? What are you tracking day to day? And to the extent that you can share, you've already shared
Sure.
a few numbers, but to the extent that you can share any more numbers, that would be great.
You know, customer lifetime value is absolutely the most high-level valuable thing that we can track. But it's not very actionable on a day-by-day basis. So when we started down this behavioral approach, this personalized approach, I was trying to figure out what to go to our teams with and say, you guys are doing a good job, or we need to step it up, or whatever. And the best thing I've found is actually using kind of a calculated metric we call active revenue per user per day. And so we've got an active group, we call them 105-day openers plus 12-month buyers. That's kind of our active user base. And then looking at the revenue that those users generate through the channel and overall every day, which kind of allows for that ultimate attribution that you need across all channels. So that's our measure of success.
Okay. And Cassie, how do you guys, how does Sailthru think about success? And can you share any success metrics that you see with your customers or targets that you're trying to hit? And then we can see if, you know,
Sure.
it's actually delivering.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think lifetime value is a big one for us. And I think when we talk with our customer base, we know there's obsession with driving kind of quick wins in the short term around optimizations and conversions today. But where we see substantial longer term revenue gain is in focusing on the lifetime revenue. So I think going back to an example from Country Outfitter, Ben's team is very regimented around running maybe 2 different treatment groups of customers today, looking at what wins today, but then revisiting those customer groups on a longitudinal basis to understand, well, did offering a discount today ultimately erode lifetime value a year from now? And the reason we're really, interested in this is, Ben mentioned before, so many brands are out there and they're feeding the top of the funnel very furiously, but there needs to be kind of that matching end on the retention side of what's going on there. So every piece that we can deliver on that end goes a long way.
There's this, I guess, interesting maybe dilemma about what you're doing, which is that a lot of these things that are personalization based, that both of you are talking about, are actually very long-term things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the pressure on marketing organizations is to deliver short-term results. Mm-hmm. And so how do you handle that? And, we'll start with you, Cassie, but when you're talking to customers about this, how do you get them to actually take a long-term perspective when they need to meet their numbers every quarter?
It's a great question because there's fundamentally that tension that exists there. I mean, the big piece of advice that we give marketers is to constantly revisit your past results. So just because something didn't look like it worked in the first week or 2 of the data, go back and revisit it 3 months from then, 6 months from then, because a lot of marketing campaigns may just play a longer tail in terms of what goes on there. So, we encourage you to do that for the good performers as well as the bad performers. I can't tell you how many times we've seen people, sweepstakes are my favorite example, where a lot of times people say, this is great, we acquired so many emails, and then 6 months later, that cohort, has had a 62% less likely to convert. So that's one, and the other thing is forecasting. So this is, we're in the business of analytics as core to customer retention, using that historical data to predict out what's going to happen.
And Ben, how do you think about this when you're, say, we're talking to your boss or your CEO about how they do this?
So we've been through it, honestly, especially when we've kind of decided to go from batch and blast. I mean, anytime you move a major platform, it's a big decision and there's a lot of integration involved and all that stuff. So, but I'll give you a good example. So we started doing couponing, right? So $20 off $150 or $35 off $300, or start to create some price level breaks and drive purchases up a little bit. Well, it was kind of a crack we couldn't get off of, honestly, because it created short-term revenue. I mean, you incentivize users to buy something, they're going to buy something, but we started to see engagement falter because people that weren't just interested in the immediate revenue, if they were interested in discovery or they didn't have that intent today, they were falling out of the active list. So that's when we started to step back and say, hey, we've got this user group that will buy from us eventually if we give them the right message at the right time. And so that was kind of the eye-opening as we continue to see our revenue and engagement drop by doing the same thing over and over. That's where personalization became valuable.
And switching gears a little bit, what are some of the other tools that you use to do personalization, alongside Sailthru?
Yeah, there's not a lot of other tools for personalization specifically. There's we use a lot of different marketing tools besides Sailthru. Like I mentioned Criteo earlier, we do Google remarketing, just using Google AdWords platform. We've started to delve a little bit into acquisitions through YouTube. Been a hard thing to get into, but I think it's ripe for acquisition because any place where nobody's getting a lot of acquisition and there's nobody in the space doing it, I think is a potential value. And then I have one more. We use Nanigans for just kind of normal marketing campaigns on Facebook especially.
Got it. And Cassie, what's your approach to the vendor ecosystem? Because you guys aren't coming into a customer site and taking over everything all at once.
No.
So how do you think about this ecosystem of products and services that you need to work with?
So I think the big thing for us is, I mentioned we primarily service the direct consumer marketer, so we see that typically breaking down to acquisition and retention. And we very much want to own the retention side of things, but we want to play with a lot of other vendors that touch other areas. So acquisition is a great example of this, where we're never going to go into that space, but we have an integration with Facebook where a Sailthru client could go in and build a custom audience based on highest lifetime value users. So we have a whole team dedicated on alliances to help us round out kind of how we touch the marketing ecosystem, but for us, we just like to play in the retention sandbox.
Got it. So we have big red flashing lights, but in 5 seconds or less, any advice for companies that want to do personalization?
The main thing I would say is absolutely worth doing. It doesn't matter what space you're in, as long as you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer and create a personalized experience, you're going to win.
Right.
Play the long game, make sure you're looking at the results longitudinally, and focus on long-term gains in addition to short-term wins.
Sage advice. Thank you both.
Next up, we're going to talk to Walmart about their sales growth. I am welcoming to the stage our speaker, Lauren Simon, Senior Director of Online Marketing for Walmart.com, and Mark Bornberg, Founder and Managing Director of Zeta Ventures Partners. Hey guys.
Julie, thank you. So if you're interested in data and analytics and scale, and how to work with customers, there's no better place to start than Walmart. Looking at your website, 245 million people come to Walmart stores and online every week. 11,000 stores in 27 countries, e-commerce websites in 10 countries, $473 billion in revenues last year. Walmart.com started in 2000. You have over 1 million products.
8 million actually.
8 million products. We'll have to update that, and a lot of innovative services as well. And so you've been senior director there of online marketing for the last 3 years. So Lauren, tell us a little bit about what your role is, what your responsibilities are.
So I oversee. Effectively, my job is basically drive traffic to the website, while also helping to drive traffic to the stores. I oversee a big team of what you would call business owners that effectively